The air in Banana Island, Lagos, hummed with the pulse of wealth and ambition, a symphony of clinking glasses, laughter, and the faint throb of Afrobeats spilling from hidden speakers. Victor and Amara Grant's mansion, a gleaming monument of glass and marble, stood as the crown jewel of this elite enclave, its sprawling terraces bathed in the golden glow of a setting sun. Tonight, it was alive with the city's elite, politicians in tailored igbatas, tech moguls with diamond-studded watches, and influencers snapping selfies against the backdrop of a lagoon shimmering under the twilight. It was the couple's 10th anniversary, and Lagos was watching. Inside, the grand ballroom buzzed with energy. Crystal chandeliers cast prisms of light across the polished ebony floors, reflecting off gold-accented walls adorned with Yoruba-inspired art. Waiters in crisp white shirts wove through the crowd, balancing trays of champagne and small chops, puff-puff, suya skewers, and moi-moi wrapped in banana leaves. The scent of jollof rice and grilled tilapia wafted from a buffet table, mingling with the heady perfume of designer fragrances. A live band played a soulful rendition of Fela Kuti's Water No Get Enemy, the saxophone weaving through the chatter like a thread through silk. Victor Grant, at 38, stood near the bar, a glass of cognac in hand, his navy tuxedo tailored to his muscular frame. His dark eyes scanned the room, sharp and calculating, a remnant of the boy who'd hustled his way out of Ajigunal's slums to build a tech empire. His app, ConnectSphere, had revolutionized digital payments in West Africa, making him a billionaire and a household name. Yet tonight, beneath his charismatic smile, a shadow lingered. He felt the weight of every gaze, every whisper, as if Lagos was waiting for him to falter. Amara Grant, radiant at 35, moved through the crowd like a breeze, her crimson gown flowing like liquid fire. The dress, designed by a Lagos couturier, hugged her curves, its beadwork catching the light with every step. Her braided hair, adorned with gold pins, framed her ebony skin, and her smile, warm, effortless, drew people to her like moths to a flame. She was more than Victor's wife. She was his anchor, the woman who'd believed in him when he was nothing but dreams and grit. Tonight, she played the perfect hostess, her laughter ringing as she greeted guests, her grace masking the exhaustion of weeks spent planning this event. The band shifted to a slower tune, and Amara glided toward Victor, her hand brushing his arm. "You're brooding," she teased, her voice low, meant only for him. Her jasmine perfume enveloped him, a scent that always grounded him, no matter how high he climbed. Victor's lips twitched into a half-smile, but his eyes remained distant. "Just taking it all in," he said, his deep voice barely audible over the music. He sipped his cognac, the burn of it sharp against the unease in his chest. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, a premonition he couldn't name. Across the room, Daniel Cole, their neighbor and a rising music producer, held court near the buffet. His easy charm and dimpled smile drew a small crowd, mostly young creatives eager for his attention. Daniel's linen shirt, unbuttoned at the collar, gave him a relaxed air, but his presence was magnetic. He caught Amara's eye and raised his glass, a playful toast that made her laugh. Victor's grip on his glass tightened, a flicker of something dark crossing his face. The moment was interrupted by a soft chime from Victor's phone, tucked in his pocket. He ignored it at first, but when it chimed again, he excused himself, stepping onto a secluded balcony overlooking the lagoon. The air was warm, heavy with the promise of rain, and the city's skyline glittered in the distance, a testament to his success. He pulled out his phone, expecting a business alert, but what he saw made his blood run cold. Asterisk, your wife and Daniel Cole are too close. Open your eyes. Asterisk, the number was blocked, the words stark against the screen's glow. Victor's heart thudded, each beat a hammer against his ribs. He read the text again, his mind racing. Daniel, with his easy smiles and late-night visits to their mansion, helping Amara with her charity projects. Victor had never questioned it. Amara's passion for community work was part of why he loved her. But now the memory of their laughter, their shared glances, twisted into something sinister. He shoved the phone back into his pocket, his jaw tight, and returned to the party, the text burning in his mind like a brand. Amara was now dancing with a group of women, her gown swirling as she moved to the rhythm of Burna Boy's Ye. Victor watched her, his heart a battlefield of love and doubt. She was his everything, but the text had planted a seed, and it was already taking root. He drained his cognac, the burn doing nothing to quell the storm brewing inside him. The party continued, a glittering facade of joy, but for Victor, the night had shifted. Every smile, every glance between Amara and Daniel, felt like a betrayal waiting to be confirmed. As the guests toasted to their decade of love, Victor's hand lingered on his phone, the anonymous text a silent guest that threatened to unravel it all. The next morning, the mansion was quiet, the remnants of the party cleared away by an army of staff. Sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, painting the living room in hues of gold and amber. Victor sat at his glass-topped desk in his home office, a sleek space filled with tech gadgets and framed awards. His laptop was open, but his eyes were fixed on his phone, the anonymous text still glowing in his memory. He hadn't slept, the words looping in his mind like a bad song. Your wife and Daniel Cole are too close. Outside, Lagos buzzed with its usual chaos, honking Danfo buses, street hawkers calling out, the distant hum of generators. But inside the mansion, the silence was oppressive, broken only by the faint clink of Amara's bangles as she moved about upstairs. Victor leaned back in his leather chair, his fingers drumming a restless rhythm. He tried to focus on a new deal, a partnership with a Chinese firm to expand ConnectSphere, but his thoughts kept drifting to Amara and Daniel. Flashbacks flooded his mind, vivid and unbidden. He saw himself at 25, a scrappy coder in a cramped adjugunal apartment, Amara by his side, her laughter lighting up the dark nights when they had nothing but each other. She'd believed in him when investors laughed him out of boardrooms, her faith a lifeline that pulled him to where he was now. But success had come with a price, whispers of rivals, betrayals, and the constant fear that he wasn't enough. The text had tapped into that fear, a crack in his armor he hadn't known was there. A knock at the door startled him. Ethan, his best friend and business partner, strode in, his tailored blazer and confident grin a stark contrast to Victor's tension. Ethan was 40, lean and sharp-eyed, with a knack for reading people that made him invaluable in negotiations. He dropped into a chair, tossing a tablet onto the desk. "You look like you've seen a ghost, man," he said, his tone light but probing. "Rough night." Victor forced a smile, his fingers tightening around his phone. "Just the party. Too much cognac." He didn't mention the text, but Ethan's gaze lingered, as if sensing the lie. They discussed the Chinese deal, but Victor's mind wandered. He remembered seeing Ethan talking to Daniel at the party, their heads bent close, a moment that now seemed suspicious. Ethan had always been the one to push Victor's buttons, to warn him about trusting too easily. "Lagos doesn't forgive the naive," he'd say, a mantra from their early days. Now Victor wondered if Ethan knew something he didn't. Amara's voice floated down the hall, bright and animated, as she spoke on the phone. Victor strained to listen, catching fragments about a charity event, a music workshop for underprivileged kids, a project she was planning with Daniel. The name hit like a spark, igniting the doubt that had simmered since the text. He excused himself from Ethan and followed the sound to the living room, where Amara stood by the window, her silk robe catching the sunlight. She ended the call as he approached, her smile fading at the sight of his expression. "Victor, what's wrong?" she asked, her voice soft, concerned. She reached for him, but he stepped back, the movement involuntary but sharp. "Nothing," he lied, his voice clipped. "Who was that?" Amara's brows furrowed, her hand dropping to her side. "Daniel. We're finalizing the workshop schedule." "Why?" The question hung between them, heavy with unspoken accusations. Victor's eyes flicked to her phone, then back to her face, searching for a hint of guilt. He found none, but the text's poison had already taken hold. "Late-night planning sessions now," he said, his tone laced with something he couldn't name, jealousy, fear, or both. Amara's eyes narrowed, a spark of defiance in their depths. "Victor, it's for the kids. You know how much this means to me." Her voice was steady, but there was a tremor beneath it, a crack in her composure. He wanted to believe her, wanted to drown out the text's echo with the memory of her love. But the doubt was a living thing now, clawing at his heart. He turned away, his footsteps echoing on the marble floor as he retreated to his office. Amara watched him go, her bangles clinking as she crossed her arms, a shield against the chill of his suspicion. That evening, Victor drove to his tech headquarters in Victoria Island, a glass tower that bore his name in neon. The city was alive with light and noise, but he felt detached, as if watching it through a fog. In his corner office, he sat alone, the skyline sprawling before him. He opened his phone, rereading the text, his fingers hovering over Daniel's contact. He didn't call, but the urge to confront him burned. Instead, he called Ethan, who arrived within the hour, his casual demeanor masking a calculating edge. "You're off, Victor," Ethan said, leaning against the desk. "Talk to me. Is it Amara?" Victor hesitated, then showed him the text. Ethan's eyes widened, but there was a flicker of something else, satisfaction perhaps, that Victor missed. "That's rough," Ethan said, his voice smooth. "Daniel's always been too close, hasn't he? Always around, always charming her." Victor's jaw tightened. "She says it's just the charity work." Ethan shrugged, his smile thin. "Maybe. But Lagos loves a scandal. You sure you know what's going on?" The words were a match to dry tinder. Victor spent the night combing through memories. Every moment Amara had spent with Daniel now tainted. He recalled a late-night meeting at Daniel's studio, Amara's laughter drifting through the open window as he'd driven by. At the time, he'd thought nothing of it. Now it was evidence, a puzzle piece in a picture he didn't want to see. By dawn, Victor was back in the mansion, standing at the window as Amara slept upstairs. The city woke around him, oblivious to the storm in his heart. The text had opened a wound, and Ethan's words had poured salt into it. Victor didn't know what to believe, but he knew one thing. He couldn't let this go. The seeds of doubt had taken root, and they were growing faster than he could control. The storm descended on Banana Island with a vengeance, as if the heavens themselves were raging against the earth. Rain lashed against the towering glass windows of Victor and Amara Grant's mansion, each drop a percussive beat in a symphony of chaos. Lightning split the bruised sky, casting fleeting shadows across the marble floors of the living room, where the air was thick with unspoken words. The chandelier above flickered, its crystal prisms trembling with each gust that rattled the mansion's frame. Outside, palm trees bent under the wind's assault, their fronds whipping like flags of surrender. Inside, a different storm was brewing, one that threatened to tear apart a decade of love. Victor Grant stood by the grand fireplace, its unlit hearth a cold mirror to his mood. At 38, he was a man forged in fire, born in the gritty alleys of Ajagunal, now a billionaire tech mogul whose app, Connect Sphere, had reshaped Nigeria's digital landscape. His charcoal suit was slightly askew, the tie loosened as if it choked him. His dark eyes, usually sharp with ambition, were clouded with a fury that made his hands tremble. In his right hand, he clutched his phone, the anonymous text glowing like a venomous snake. Asterisk, your wife and Daniel Cole are too close. Open your eyes. Asterisk, the words had festered in his mind for days, each syllable a needle pricking at his pride. Amara Grant sat on a velvet chaise lounge, her emerald caftan pooling around her like a still lake. At 35, she was a vision of elegance, her ebony skin glowing under the chandelier's dim light, her braided hair swept into a regal updo adorned with gold beads. Her almond-shaped eyes, usually warm with kindness, were wide with unease, sensing the tension radiating from Victor. Her fingers, adorned with gold bangles, twisted nervously in her lap, the soft clink of metal the only sound competing with the rain. The scent of her jasmine perfume lingered, a fragile thread of calm in the charged atmosphere. The silence between them was a living thing, heavy and oppressive, broken only by the storm's relentless drumming. Victor paced, his polished loafers clicking against the marble, each step a countdown to an explosion. Amara watched him, her heart pounding like the thunder outside, her intuition screaming that something was terribly wrong. She had seen Victor's temper before, quick to flare, slow to fade, but this was different, a quiet rage that scared her more than any outburst. "Victor," she said softly, her voice a tentative bridge across the chasm between them. "Please talk to me. You've been like this since the party. What's happened?" He stopped pacing, his back to her, his silhouette framed against the rain-streaked window. His shoulders were rigid, his breath uneven. "Talk," he said, his voice low, almost swallowed by the storm. "You want to talk now, Amara?" The edge in his tone was a blade, sharp and cold. Amara rose, her caftan rustling, and took a step toward him, her bare feet silent on the cool floor. "Yes, Victor. I'm your wife. Whatever it is, we can face it together." He whirled to face her, his eyes blazing with a mix of pain and accusation. "Don't play the devoted wife with me," he snapped, holding up his phone like a weapon. The screen's glow cast harsh shadows across his face, making him look like a stranger. This is what we're facing." Amara's breath caught, her eyes darting to the phone. She couldn't read the text from where she stood, but the fury in Victor's gaze told her it was poison. She reached for the phone, her fingers brushing his, a fleeting connection that made her heart ache for the man she loved. "Victor, show me," she said, her voice trembling but firm. He thrust the phone into her hands, his movements jerky, as if it burned to touch. Amara read the text, her eyes scanning the words once, then again, as if they might dissolve into something less devastating. Asterisk, your wife and Daniel Cole are too close. Open your eyes. Asterisk her heart plummeted, a stone sinking into dark waters. She looked up at Victor, her eyes wide with disbelief. Daniel, she whispered, her voice barely audible over the rain. You think I'm cheating with Daniel? Victor's silence was louder than the thunder. His gaze bored into her, searching for a crack, a confession he was certain she hid. The room seemed to shrink, the walls closing in as the storm raged on. Amara shook her head, a slow, incredulous motion, her bangles clinking like a funeral bell. Victor, this is insane. Daniel is our neighbor. A friend. How could you believe this? I've seen you with him. Victor's voice exploded, a clap of thunder in human form. He stepped closer, towering over her, his presence overwhelming. Laughing, whispering, always together for your precious charity. You think I'm blind, Amara? You think I don't see how he looks at you? Amara's chest tightened, her breath coming in short, sharp gasps. She stepped back, her back brushing the chaise, her hands trembling as she clutched the phone. Victor, you're wrong, she said, her voice breaking. I've never betrayed you. Never. Daniel and I are planning a youth project, something for you, for us. You know this. Do I? Victor's voice was quieter now, but laced with venom. He ran a hand through his close-cropped hair, his fingers lingering at his temple as if to steady the chaos within. I built this life for us, Amara. This house, this empire. I gave you everything, and you repay me by sneaking around with him. The words were a slap, raw and stinging. Amara's eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them back, her jaw tight. Repay you, she said, her voice rising to match his. I'm not your property, Victor. I'm your partner. I stood by you when we had nothing, when we shared a mattress and Ajagunal. I've loved you through every storm, and now you accuse me because of some coward's text. Victor flinched, her words slicing through his anger. For a moment, the boy from Ajagunal flickered in his eyes, the one who'd proposed with a cheap ring and a heart full of dreams. But the doubt, fed by days of suspicion, was too strong. Don't twist this, he said, his voice cold. I heard you with him last night, at his studio, laughing like you used to laugh with me. Amara's jaw dropped, her mind racing to the previous evening. She and Daniel had been finalizing plans for a music workshop, a surprise for Victor. They'd laughed over a silly joke about Lagos traffic, nothing more. The realization that Victor had been watching, twisting every moment, made her stomach churn. You spied on me? She asked, her voice a mix of hurt and outrage. I was protecting what's mine. Victor roared, his fists slamming against the fireplace mantel, the sound echoing with the thunder. You think I'd let you humiliate me? Lagos is watching, Amara. They'll tear us apart. Tears spilled down Amara's cheeks, hot and unstoppable. She set the phone on the chaise, her movements deliberate, as if anchoring herself in the chaos. You're the one tearing us apart, she said, her voice steady despite the tears. You're letting some faceless liar destroy us. 10 years, Victor. 10 years of trust, and you throw it away like this? Victor's chest heaved, his breath ragged. He wanted to believe her, to pull her into his arms and silence the storm with her warmth. But the image of her with Daniel, the laughter he'd heard, the text's poison, it was too much. I can't live with this doubt, he said, his voice barely a whisper raw with pain. Then don't, Amara said, her voice breaking like glass. She stepped back, her caftan pooling around her feet like a fallen crown. If you can't trust me, Victor, there's nothing left. You want me gone? I'll go. Victor's eyes widened, panic flashing across his face. Amara, wait. But she was already moving, her bare feet silent as she crossed the marble floor to the grand staircase. The chandelier's light caught her tears, turning them into fleeting jewels. She paused at the base of the stairs, her hand gripping the banister, her wedding ring glinting. I loved you, she said, her voice soft but resolute. But I won't stay where I'm not trusted. She ascended the stairs, her silhouette swallowed by the shadows. Victor stood frozen, the phone on the chaise a silent accusation. He stepped onto the balcony, the rain soaking his suit, and watched as Amara's car pulled out of the driveway, heading toward Yaba. The weight of his mistake settled in his chest, heavy as the storm clouds above. The scandal broke over Lagos like the storm that had driven Amara from the mansion. By morning, the city's gossip mills were churning, whispers of the Grants' unraveling marriage spreading from Banana Island's elite circles to the bustling streets of Suralere. The tabloids pounced, their headlines screaming betrayal. Tech Titan's marriage implodes, and Amara Grant's secret affair? Paparazzi camped outside the mansion, their cameras flashing like vultures circling a carcass. Victor's name, once synonymous with triumph, was now tainted, his reputation fraying like a worn Igbata. Victor sat in his office at the top of his Victoria Island tower, the city sprawling below like a map of his ambitions. The room was a fortress of glass and steel, but it felt like a cage. His desk was cluttered with contracts for a new tech deal, but his eyes were fixed on a tabloid headline on his tablet, the words blurring as guilt gnawed at him. He hadn't slept, the memory of Amara's tear-streaked face haunting him. His suit was rumpled, his tie discarded, a stark contrast to the polished image Lagos expected. Ethan, his business partner, strode in, his demeanor as slick as ever. "You look like hell," he said, tossing a coffee onto the desk. "Investors are nervous, Victor. They're hearing the rumors. You need to get your head in the game." Victor's jaw tightened. "My head's fine," he lied, his voice rough. But it wasn't. The boardroom felt hollow, the empire he'd built meaningless without Amara. Ethan pushed the Chinese deal, his words smooth but insistent, urging Victor to focus. Yet every mention of stability felt like a jab at his crumbling personal life. Ethan's casual mention of Daniel, "He's still sniffing around, isn't he?" stoked Victor's lingering doubts, even as guilt began to outweigh them. Across town, in Yaba's vibrant but modest streets, Amara found refuge in her sister Nkechi's small bungalow. The house was a world away from Banana Island, its walls painted a cheerful yellow, its yard alive with children's laughter and the clatter of street vendors. Nkechi, a no-nonsense nurse with a sharp tongue, welcomed Amara with a fierce hug, her eyes blazing at the mention of Victor's accusation. "That man's a fool," she said, stirring a pot of egusi soup, its rich aroma filling the kitchen. "But you're stronger than this, Amara." Amara sat at the worn wooden table, her silk robe replaced by a simple Ankara dress, her wedding ring still on her finger, a heavy reminder of what she'd left behind. The tabloids had reached Yaba, their headlines stinging like salt in a wound. Yet the community embraced her, their warmth a balm to her shattered heart. At Nkechi's urging, Amara began volunteering at a local community center, where she started an art therapy program for children. The kids, with their bright eyes and eager hands, painted murals of Lagos life, Danfo buses, palm trees, bustling markets, under her guidance. Their laughter was a lifeline, pulling her from the edge of despair. Each stroke of the brush, each smile from a child, rebuilt a piece of Amara's spirit. She taught them to blend colors, to express joy and pain on canvas, her own pain finding voice in their art. One afternoon, a girl named Temi painted a vibrant scene of a woman rising from flames, her eyes fierce with determination. "That's you, Auntie Amara," Temi said, her voice shy but certain. Amara's throat tightened, tears threatening, but she smiled, squeezing Temi's hand. Meanwhile, Victor's world continued to unravel. Investors whispered about his distraction, their confidence waning. A board meeting turned tense, with questions about his leadership veiled in polite concern. Ethan's presence was a constant, his advice sharp-edged, pushing Victor to bury his guilt in work. But every night, alone in the mansion, Victor replayed the fight, Amara's words echoing, "I won't stay where I'm not trusted." He stood on the balcony where he'd watched her leave, the lagoon's dark waters reflecting his regret. The city's fascination with their scandal only deepened his isolation, the headlines a mirror to his mistake. Amara, too, felt the weight of Lagos' gaze. Women at the community center shared stories of their own struggles, their resilience inspiring her to keep going. She began to see her art program as more than therapy. It was a rebellion against the narrative that sought to define her as a fallen wife. Yet, in quiet moments, her fingers traced her wedding ring, her heart torn between love and hurt. Victor's accusation had shattered her trust, but the love that had bound them for a decade lingered, a ghost she couldn't banish. As the days passed, Victor's guilt grew, a shadow that followed him through boardrooms and sleepless nights. He began to question the text, the seed of doubt now sprouting into suspicion of another kind. Who had sent it, and why? Ethan's casual remarks about Daniel felt too pointed, too convenient. But for now, Victor was trapped in his own making, the mansion's silence a testament to the void Amara had left behind. The night air in Lagos was thick with the scent of rain-soaked earth and diesel, a gritty perfume that clung to the streets of Ikoyi. Victor Grant navigated his sleek black Range Rover through the neon-lit chaos, the city's pulse a faint echo of his own racing heart. At 38, he was a man accustomed to control, his tech empire a testament to his relentless drive. But tonight, control was a distant memory. His hands gripped the steering wheel, knuckles pale, as he headed toward Daniel Cole's modern studio, a glass and steel haven nestled among Ikoyi's upscale villas. The anonymous text, *Your wife and Daniel Cole are too close. Open your eyes asterisk, burned in his mind, a fire that had consumed his marriage and left him raw with rage and regret. Daniel's studio was a beacon of light in the darkness, its floor-to-ceiling windows glowing with warm amber hues. Inside, the space was a blend of creativity and chaos. Mixing boards lined one wall, microphones dangled from stands, and colorful Yoruba tapestries hung alongside posters of Fela Kuti and Burna Boy. The faint thrum of a bass line pulsed through the air, a demo track Daniel was working on. Victor parked, his polished loafers splashing through puddles as he approached the entrance, his navy blazer damp from the drizzle that lingered after the previous night's storm. Daniel Cole, 32 and effortlessly charismatic, opened the door before Victor could knock. His linen shirt, rolled up at the sleeves, revealed forearms dusted with tattoos of musical notes and Adinkra symbols. His dimpled smile, usually disarming, faltered at the sight of Victor's stormy expression. "Victor," he said, his voice cautious but warm. "Didn't expect you. Everything okay?" Victor didn't answer, brushing past Daniel into the studio. The scent of sandalwood incense mingled with the metallic tang of electronics, grounding the space in a strange mix of tradition and modernity. "We need to talk," Victor said, his voice low, each word a tightly coiled spring. He stood by a mixing board, his broad shoulders rigid, his dark eyes fixed on Daniel like a predator sizing up prey. Daniel raised an eyebrow, closing the door behind him. "All right, man. What's this about?" He leaned against a stool, his casual posture a stark contrast to Victor's tension. The bass line faded, leaving a heavy silence. Victor's hand twitched, itching to pull out his phone and shove the damning text in Daniel's face. Instead, he crossed his arms, his voice cutting like a blade. "You and Amara. What's going on?" Daniel's eyes widened, a flicker of confusion crossing his face. "Amara? We're working on the youth project, Victor. You know that. The music studio for kids in your name." He gestured to a blueprint on a nearby table, showing a community center with a recording booth, a surprise Amara had planned for their anniversary before everything fell apart. Victor's jaw tightened, his mind racing. The project was real. He'd seen Amara's notes, heard her passion for it, but the text had twisted it into something sinister. "Don't play me," he snapped, stepping closer, his presence filling the room. "I've seen you two together. Late nights, laughing, always so close. Tell me the truth, Daniel." Daniel's expression shifted from confusion to realization, then to something like pity. He straightened, his voice steady but laced with disbelief. "You think I'm sleeping with Amara?" He laughed, a sharp, incredulous sound that echoed off the studio's walls. "Victor, man, you've got it all wrong." Victor's fists clenched, his anger flaring at the laughter. "Then explain it," he growled. "Explain why someone's telling me you're too close to my wife." Daniel's smile faded, his eyes softening with an unexpected vulnerability. He took a deep breath, as if weighing his words, then met Victor's gaze head-on. "Victor, I'm not into Amara. I'm not into any woman. I'm gay." The words hit Victor like a physical blow, his anger faltering as the ground shifted beneath him. He stared at Daniel, his mind scrambling to process the revelation. A memory flashed, Daniel at the anniversary party, charming but never flirtatious, always keeping a respectful distance. Victor's assumptions, built on jealousy and a poisoned text, crumbled like sand. He started, his voice trailing off, unable to finish. Daniel nodded, his expression calm but firm. "Yeah, I've never told you or Amara because it's nobody's business. But I'm telling you now so you can stop this madness. Amara's been nothing but a friend, working her heart out to honor you with this project." He walked to the mixing board, his fingers deftly cueing a track. "Listen to this." A demo played, a soulful Afrobeats melody with lyrics about hope and dreams, written for the kids who'd use the studio. Daniel's voice, rich and heartfelt, filled the room, singing of rising from struggle, a nod to Victor's own journey from Ajagunal. Victor stood frozen, the music washing over him, each note a hammer to his pride. Shame crept into his chest, heavy and suffocating. He'd accused Amara, driven her away, all based on a lie he'd let consume him. "I'm sorry," Victor said finally, his voice hoarse, barely audible over the fading track. He sank onto a stool, his head in his hands, the weight of his mistake crushing him. Daniel watched him, his expression a mix of empathy and frustration. "Fix this, Victor," Daniel said quietly. "Amara doesn't deserve this." Victor left the studio, the drizzle now a steady rain, soaking him as he stood by his car. A flashback hit. Ethan at the party, his arm around Victor, whispering about Daniel's charm, planting seeds of doubt with a smile. The memory felt different now, tinged with a cunning Victor hadn't noticed before. He climbed into his car, his mind no longer on Daniel but on the text's source. Someone had wanted this chaos, and he was starting to suspect who. The Victoria Island skyline glittered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Victor's office, a testament to his empire, but the view offered no comfort. The room was stark, all glass and chrome, a sterile contrast to the warmth of Daniel's studio. Victor sat at his desk, his laptop open to a string of unanswered emails, but his focus was elsewhere. The revelation about Daniel had shattered his assumptions, leaving a new question burning in his mind. Who sent the text? The answer felt close, a shadow just out of reach, and it gnawed at him like a Lagos traffic jam. He'd hired a hacker, a discreet contact from his early days, to trace the anonymous number. The tech world was cutthroat, and Victor had learned to keep allies in the shadows. As he waited for answers, he paced the office, his polished shoes silent on the carpet. The city buzzed below, oblivious to his turmoil, but the whispers of his broken marriage lingered in boardrooms and tabloids. His investors were restless, their faith shaken by the scandal, and Victor felt the weight of their scrutiny like a physical load. Ethan strolled in, his tailored blazer and easy grin a mask of confidence. "You're brooding again," he said, dropping into a chair. "The Chinese deal needs your head in the game, Victor. We can't afford distractions." Victor's eyes narrowed, Ethan's casual tone grating against his raw nerves. He remembered Ethan's words at the party, his subtle nudges about Daniel's closeness to Amara. "Distractions," Victor said, his voice low, testing the waters. "Like anonymous texts?" Ethan's smile flickered, a crack in his facade, but he recovered quickly. "Still hung up on that? Let it go, man. Focus on what's real." He leaned forward, his eyes sharp. "Like this deal? It's our ticket to the next level." Victor didn't respond, his gaze fixed on Ethan. The hacker's call came an hour later, the news delivered in a clipped tone. The text traced to a burner phone, purchased in Lekki, linked to a shadowy transaction involving Ethan's personal account. Victor's blood ran cold, the pieces falling into place. He arranged a meeting that night, not in his office but in a discreet Lekki lounge, a place where deals were made in whispers and secrets traded like currency. The lounge was dimly lit, its air thick with cigar smoke and the clink of glasses. Victor sat in a corner booth, his blazer discarded, his shirt sleeves rolled up. Across from him was Clara, his assistant, her nervous energy betraying her usual poise. She was 29, sharp-witted, with a knack for anticipating Victor's needs, until now. The hacker had uncovered more than the text. Clara and Ethan were involved, their affair a secret hidden in late-night texts and stolen moments. "Tell me," Victor said, his voice low, dangerous. "What did Ethan plan?" Clara's fingers twisted around her glass, her eyes avoiding his. "It wasn't supposed to go this far," she whispered. "He wanted you distracted, unstable. The text was his idea, to make you doubt Amara, to weaken you before the board vote." She hesitated, then slid a USB drive across the table. "It's all here. A recording. He didn't know I kept it." Victor took the drive, his heart pounding. Back in his office, he played the file, Ethan's voice filling the room, cold and calculating. Asterisk, Victor's too soft on her. "One text, and he'll crumble. Then we push him out, take Connexphere for ourselves." Asterisk, Clara's voice was there too, hesitant but complicit, revealing their affair and their plan to frame Amara. Victor's world tilted, the betrayal cutting deeper than Amara's departure. Ethan, his friend since their Ajagunal days, had orchestrated it all. Across town, in Yaba, Amara's art therapy program was blossoming. The community center buzzed with children painting vibrant murals, their laughter a stark contrast to the chaos in Victor's world. Amara, in a simple Ankara dress, guided their hands, her own pain channeled into their creativity. The local press had taken notice, reporters visiting to cover her work, their questions about her marriage met with a quiet dignity that only fueled public admiration. She didn't know about Victor's discovery, but her resolve grew, each brushstroke a step toward reclaiming her strength. Victor sat alone in his office, the USB drive in his hand, the recording still echoing in his mind. The city's lights glittered outside, but his empire felt hollow, built on trust now shattered. Ethan's betrayal was a wound, but it was Amara's absence that bled him dry. He knew he had to make this right, not just for his company, but for the woman he'd driven away. The Yaba Community Center was a world apart from the gleaming opulence of Banana Island, its weathered concrete walls alive with the vibrant chaos of Lagos life. The air buzzed with the chatter of children, the clatter of nearby street vendors hawking boli and groundnuts, and the faint hum of a generator powering the center's lights. Inside Amara Grant's art studio, a small room tucked at the back, sunlight streamed through a cracked window, illuminating murals of palm trees, Danfo buses, and Yoruba deities painted by tiny hands. The scent of acrylic paint and sawdust mingled with the earthy aroma of Yaba's red soil, carried in on the breeze. It was here, amidst the laughter of children and the smudged canvases, that Amara had begun to rebuild herself after Victor's devastating accusation. Victor Grant stood at the studio's entrance, his tailored blazer out of place among the ochre-clad volunteers and paint-splattered kids. At 38, he was a man unaccustomed to vulnerability, his tech empire built on control and ambition. But today his broad shoulders slumped slightly, his dark eyes shadowed with regret. The revelation about Daniel's sexuality and Ethan's betrayal had stripped away his pride, leaving him raw and determined to make things right. His polished loafers hesitated on the threshold, the weight of his mistake heavy as the humid air. Amara stood at a wooden table, guiding a group of children as they painted a mural of a Lagos sunset, hues of orange and purple swirling like a dream. Her simple Ankara dress, a vibrant mix of blue and gold, clung to her frame, her braided hair pulled back with a head wrap. At 35, her beauty was undimmed, but her eyes held a guardedness that hadn't been there before. She hadn't seen Victor yet, her focus on a boy named Chitty, whose brush trembled as he painted a palm tree. "Steady, Chitty," she said softly, her voice a balm. "Let the tree grow with you." Victor cleared his throat, the sound cutting through the room's hum. Amara's head snapped up, her eyes meeting his, and for a moment the world stilled. The children continued painting, oblivious, but the air between Victor and Amara crackled with unspoken history. Her expression hardened, her hand tightening around a paintbrush, but she didn't look away. "Victor," she said, her voice neutral, a shield against the pain he'd caused. He stepped inside, the door creaking shut behind him. "Amara," he said, his voice low, rough with emotion. "Can we talk?" She hesitated, glancing at the children, then nodded curtly. "Outside," she said, leading him to a small courtyard where a mango tree cast dappled shade. The sounds of Yaba, honking Okadas, laughter, the call of a street preacher, filled the air, grounding them in the city's relentless pulse. Amara crossed her arms, her gold bangles clinking, her eyes wary. "What do you want, Victor?" He took a deep breath, the words he'd rehearsed dissolving under her gaze. "I was wrong," he said, his voice breaking. "About everything. About Daniel, about you. I let my insecurities, my fear of losing you, blind me. I know about Ethan now, his lies, the text. I drove you away, and I'm so sorry, Amara." Her eyes widened, a flicker of surprise breaking through her guard. She'd suspected Ethan's manipulations, but hearing it from Victor was a jolt. Yet the hurt lingered, raw and jagged. "You didn't just doubt me, Victor," she said, her voice trembling with controlled anger. "You humiliated me. You stood in our home and told me to leave like I was nothing. 10 years, and you believed a stranger's text over me." Victor flinched, her words a lash against his guilt. He stepped closer, his hands open, pleading. "I know I failed you. I let my past, Ajagunal, the fear of not being enough, cloud everything. But I see you now, Amara. I see what you're doing here, how strong you are. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm asking for a chance to earn it." Amara's eyes glistened, but she blinked back tears, her jaw tight. "A chance," she said, her voice soft but sharp. "You broke something, Victor. Trust doesn't just come back because you're sorry." She looked away, toward the studio where children's laughter spilled out, a reminder of the life she was building without him. "But I won't shut you out. Not yet." She gestured toward the studio. "You want to earn something? Start here. Help the kids. Show me you're more than words." Victor nodded, his throat tight, grateful for the sliver of an opening. They returned to the studio, where Chitty tugged at Victor's sleeve, thrusting a paintbrush into his hand. "Paint with me, uncle," he said, his grin wide. Victor hesitated, then knelt beside Chitty, his large hands awkward with the brush. They painted a market scene, Victor's strokes clumsy but earnest, Chitty's laughter easing the tension. Amara watched from a distance, her heart stirring as she saw Victor's vulnerability, a glimpse of the man she'd fallen in love with. Their eyes met briefly, a spark of old chemistry flickering, but she turned away, her walls still up. Outside, Yaba whispered with rumors of their meeting, Lagos gossip mills spinning tales of reconciliation, but Amara wasn't ready to let the city, or Victor, define her future. The boardroom at Connect Sphere's Victoria Island headquarters was a fortress of power, its mahogany table gleaming under recessed lights, the Lagos skyline sprawling beyond the glass walls. Victor Grant sat at the head, his navy suit crisp but his eyes weary, the weight of betrayal and redemption etched into his face. At 38, he was a titan, but today he felt like a man standing on the edge of a cliff. The investors around the table, men and women in tailored suits and igbatas, watched him with a mix of curiosity and skepticism, the scandal of his marriage still rippling through their confidence. Ethan, his business partner, sat across from him, his lean frame relaxed, his smile a polished mask. At 40, Ethan was a master of manipulation, his sharp eyes scanning the room for weaknesses. He'd orchestrated the anonymous text that shattered Victor's marriage, banking on Victor's instability to seize control of Connect's fear. Now he leaned forward, pitching the Chinese deal with a confidence that bordered on arrogance, unaware that Victor held the USB drive with his recorded confession. Victor's voice cut through Ethan's spiel, calm but lethal. "Before we vote on the deal, there's something you all need to hear." The room stilled, heads turning. Ethan's smile faltered, a crack in his facade. Victor plugged the USB into a laptop, and Ethan's voice filled the room, cold and calculating. Asterisk, Victor's too soft on her. One text, and he'll crumble. Then we push him out, take Connect's fear for ourselves. Asterisk, Clara's voice followed, hesitant but complicit, revealing their affair and the plot to frame Amara. Gasps rippled through the boardroom, investors shifting in their seats. Ethan's face drained of color, his hands gripping the table. "This is a setup," he stammered, his voice rising. "Victor, you can't believe." "I believe the evidence," Victor said, his voice steady, his eyes boring into Ethan's. "You betrayed me, Ethan. My friend, my brother. You used my marriage to weaken me." He slid a folder across the table, detailing the burner phone purchase and Ethan's financial trail. "It's over." The investors erupted, their voices a cacophony of outrage. One, a stern woman in a ghillie, stood, her voice cutting through the noise. "We trusted you, Ethan. This is unacceptable." Another, a gray-haired tycoon, pulled out his phone, already dialing to withdraw funds. Ethan's empire, his stake in Connect's fear, his reputation, crumbled in real time, his face a mask of desperation as he realized the depth of his fall. Clara, who'd slipped into the boardroom unnoticed, stood frozen by the door. Her eyes met Victor's, wide with panic. She'd given him the recording, hoping to save herself, but now she saw the cost. Without a word, she fled, her heels clicking down the hall. Later that night, in a desperate bid for redemption, she would leak the recording to the press, the audio spreading like wildfire through Lagos gossip networks, sealing Ethan's ruin. Ethan rose, his chair scraping the floor, his voice a weak protest. "Victor, we built this together. You can't do this." But Victor's silence was answer enough. Ethan stormed out, his humiliated exit watched by a room that had already turned against him. Victor remained seated, the victory hollow. His control over Connect's fear was secure, but his heart was elsewhere, with Amara. Meanwhile, in Yaba, Amara's art program received an unexpected invitation to a national arts festival in Abuja, a recognition of her work's impact. The news came during a session at the community center, where children painted a mural of a Lagos lagoon, their brushes dancing with joy. Amara stood among them, her Ankara dress streaked with paint, her confidence growing with each child's smile. Reporters lingered, their questions about her marriage met with a quiet strength that only fueled public admiration. She didn't know about Victor's showdown, but she felt a shift, a sense that her path was her own. Victor, back in his office, stared at the skyline, the USB drive still in his hand. He'd reclaimed his empire, but Amara's absence was a void no victory could fill. He thought of her in Yaba, painting with the kids, her resilience a beacon he longed to follow. He vowed to support her from afar, respecting the space she needed, even as Lagos buzzed with whispers of their story, a city captivated by the drama of a love tested and a betrayal exposed. Freedom Park in Lagos was a riot of life and color, transformed into a vibrant festival that pulsed with the heartbeat of Nigeria. Lanterns swayed between ancient palm trees, their amber glow casting intricate patterns on the ground, while the air carried the mingled scents of sizzling suya, roasted corn, and the sharp tang of palm wine. Stalls overflowed with steaming jollof rice, golden puff-puff, and chilled zobo drinks, their aromas weaving through the crowd like a warm embrace. On the central stage, a band fused Afrobeats with Yoruba talking drums, the rhythm pulling dancers in beaded costumes into a whirlwind of motion. Children darted through the throng, their laughter mingling with the calls of hawkers and the hum of a city that never slept. At the heart of the festival, Amara Grant's art program shone, its exhibit of children's murals, vivid depictions of Lagos markets, soaring egrets, and defiant dreamers, drawing gasps and murmurs from passers-by. Amara stood beside a canvas painted with a Lagos sunset, its oranges and purples swirling like a dream captured in color. Her turquoise ochre gown shimmered under the lanterns, the fabric catching the light with every subtle movement, while cowrie shells in her braided hair clicked softly, a nod to tradition. At 35, her beauty was a quiet force, her almond-shaped eyes glowing with pride as she watched her young artists bask in the crowd's admiration. The festival was a triumph, her program's invitation a testament to its impact, but beneath her poised exterior, a guardedness lingered, a scar from Victor's accusation months ago. His apology in Yaba had cracked her defenses, his volunteering at her studio stirring memories of their early days, but trust was a fragile thing, and she wasn't ready to surrender it. Victor Grant stood at the crowd's edge, his tailored blazer and open-collared shirt blending into the festival's vibrancy, but his presence was a quiet storm. At 38, he was no longer just the tech billionaire who'd risen from Ajigunal's grit to build Connexsphere. He was a man reshaped by regret and revelation. Exposing Ethan's betrayal had secured his empire, but losing Amara had shown him what truly mattered. Tonight, he'd come uninvited, driven by a need to prove he'd changed. Whispers rippled through the crowd, Lagos gossip mills spinning tales of their broken marriage, eyes darting to him with curiosity. But Victor's focus was Amara, radiant and unreachable across the sea of people. The music paused, and a festival organizer, her galley towering like a crown, took the stage, her voice cutting through the night. "We honor Amara Grant tonight," she declared, gesturing to the murals. "Her work with our children shows the power of art to heal and inspire." Applause erupted and Amara stepped forward, her smile gracious but restrained, accepting the praise with a nod. As she returned to her exhibit, Victor moved through the crowd, his heart pounding like the talking drums. She saw him as he approached, her eyes narrowing, a flicker of surprise breaking her composure. "Victor," she said, her voice neutral, a shield against the past. She stood by a mural of a woman rising from flames, painted by a girl named Temi, its defiance mirroring Amara's own. "What are you doing here?" He took a breath, the air heavy with the scent of grilled tilapia and anticipation. "I had to come," he said, his voice low, raw with sincerity. "Your work, Amara, these kids, these murals, it's incredible. I'm so proud of you." His words hung between them, weighted with months of regret. The crowd's murmurs grew, heads turning, but Victor pressed on. "I've been lost without you. I was wrong, blinded by my own fears. Ethan's lies, the text, they broke us, but I broke us first. I'm not the man I was, Amara. I'm trying to be better." Her eyes widened, his openness a blade against her defenses. She'd suspected Ethan's plot, had seen his cunning in the shadows, but stayed silent to protect Victor's legacy, a secret she'd carried like a stone. "You hurt me, Victor," she said, her voice trembling, soft but sharp. "You didn't just doubt me, you cast me out. Words aren't enough." Victor's throat tightened, his hands open, pleading. "I know. I don't deserve you, but I'm here, asking for a chance to prove myself." His eyes searched hers, finding the woman who'd loved him through Ajigunal's hardships, who'd believed in him when he was nothing. Amara's gaze softened, but her walls held firm. "Prove it," she said finally. "Not with promises, but with time." She paused, then added, "We can talk. But not here." She gestured to a quiet corner near the lagoon, where the festival's noise faded to a hum. Under the stars, with the water lapping softly, they spoke. Victor shared his journey, facing his insecurities, dismantling Ethan's betrayal, his voice breaking with vulnerability. Amara listened, her heart stirring as she revealed her own truth. "I knew Ethan was scheming, Victor. I saw his games, but I stayed quiet to protect what you built. I didn't want you to lose everything." The confession was a twist, a quiet strength that left Victor speechless, his shame deepening. The band struck up a slow tune, a soulful melody that pulled couples to the dance floor. Victor extended his hand, tentative. "Dance with me?" he asked, his voice a whisper. Amara hesitated, then took it, her fingers warm against his. They moved under the lanterns, their bodies swaying to memories of their early days, nights in a cramped apartment, dreaming of a future now fractured. The crowd watched, whispers of reconciliation spreading like wildfire. But for Victor and Amara, the world was just them, the music, and the stars that as the song ended, Amara's hand lingered in his, her wedding ring glinting in the lantern light. She slipped it off, then back on, a tentative gesture, her eyes meeting his with a flicker of hope. "This doesn't mean we're fixed," she said softly. "But it's a start." Victor nodded, his heart lighter, the festival's energy a backdrop to their fragile new beginning. A year later, Lagos shimmered under a clear sky, the air alive with anticipation as the city gathered for the opening of the Grant Youth Arts and Tech Hub in Surulere. The building was a marvel, glass walls reflecting the sun, murals of Yoruba gods and Lagos life adorning its exterior, a fusion of Amara's art and Victor's tech vision. Inside, studios buzzed with the hum of computers and the scent of fresh paint, a space where children could code apps and create art, a beacon for the next generation. The courtyard overflowed with community members, their Ankara prints and laughter a testament to Lagos' unbreakable spirit. Food stalls offered egusi stew and akra, their steam rising like offerings to the future. Victor and Amara stood side by side, their hands brushing, a quiet intimacy forged through months of rebuilding trust. At 39 and 36, they were no longer the fractured couple of the past, but partners tempered by trials. Victor's navy suit was crisp, his smile genuine, while Amara's red gown flowed like a river, her braided hair crowned with gold beads. Their love, once shattered, was deeper now, rooted in honesty and shared purpose. The crowd, children from Amara's program, tech entrepreneurs, and local leaders, watched them with awe, their story a legend whispered in markets and boardrooms alike. Daniel Cole took the stage, his presence magnetic, his linen shirt rolled up to reveal tattoos that told stories of music and heritage. His friendship with Victor and Amara had healed, a bond stronger for its scars. He strummed a guitar, his voice rising in a song written for the hub, a blend of Afrobeats and hope, its lyrics echoing the dreams of kids from Ajigunle to Lekki. The crowd swayed, some dabbing tears, others clapping to the rhythm, as Daniel's performance sealed the hub's promise, a place where creativity and innovation could thrive. Victor stepped to the microphone, his voice steady but warm. "This hub is our heart," he said, glancing at Amara. "It's for the kids who dream like we did, who deserve a chance to rise." Amara joined him, her smile radiant, adding, "Art and tech can change lives. Together, we're building a legacy for Lagos." The crowd roared, their cheers a wave of pride, the city embracing them as symbols of redemption, a couple who'd fallen and risen stronger. The ribbon cutting was the climax, a red satin strip stretched across the hub's entrance. Victor and Amara held the scissors together, their hands intertwined, a silent vow of unity. As the ribbon fell, the crowd erupted, children rushing forward to explore the studios, their laughter a melody of possibility. Victor and Amara stepped back, their fingers still laced, their eyes meeting with a shared understanding. They'd begun planning a vow renewal, a private ceremony to reaffirm their love, but today was about the community, the future they'd built together. Later, as the sun set, painting the sky in hues of their murals, Victor and Amara stood in the courtyard, watching kids code their first apps and paint their dreams. Daniel's song lingered in the air, a reminder of their healed bonds. Lagos buzzed with their story, neighbors and strangers alike captivated by the couple who'd turned pain into purpose. Victor squeezed Amara's hand, her wedding ring warm against his skin, and whispered, "We made it." She smiled, her voice soft but sure. "We're just beginning." And that is where we draw the cotton for today's story. Don't forget to subscribe, comment, like, and share for more interesting stories.